Most times when you work inside After Effects, you work with assets that you import into After Effects. Now, you don't always work with things that you import into After Effects. You can work with things you create in After Effects, like text and solid layers and shapes, but usually you bring stuff in. So in this lesson, I want to talk about how you bring in a few things: video, audio, still images, graphics with transparencies, and image sequences. And in the next lesson, I'll talk about bringing in Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop files. So to follow along, just start up After Effects. You can simply close the welcome screen. We don't have to save this project. We're just going to show you how to work with importing. You import assets by going File, Import, and then click on File here. The rest of these guys are not so critical for what we're doing here. We're going to click on File. That opens up the Import File dialog box, and I've got mine open to the Working Files folder on the desktop here, right there. Got these 4 folders inside there. I'm going to start off by bringing in some video files. Those video files are inside the Digital Juice stock footage folder. I want to select multiple files, and if you've never selected multiple files from a dialog box like this, then I'm going to give you a little trick to do that. I want to select, let's say, the first one, the third one, the fifth one. So I click on one, and in Windows I hold down Control, in Mac I hold down Command, and can select anything else, non-contiguous things like that. If I want to select some things that are contiguous, meaning touching each other, I can click 1 and then shift-click on that one down there and select all the ones in between. So I'll select just a few here, just the first one, third one, fifth one. Once I've selected them, all I need to do is just click on Open here. If I'd selected just one, I could have double-clicked that one, and that would open up that particular one. But I'll pick those 3 and then click on this Open button down here. Before I do that, you might notice there's some extra stuff down here. Import as footage, but there really isn't a choice. It just will be footage. So click Open, and off we go. Bring in those 3 files. And there they are inside the project panel. If I click on one, you can see a thumbnail preview there. You can't play it there. You preview it in the footage panel over here. You double-click on it, and you can preview it here in the footage panel. Press the space bar. It'll play through it like that. You might notice there's no audio with this. That's because this is stock footage. We got this from Digital Juice, who provided it for our use, and we thank them for that. And there's no audio associated with it. That's standard for stock footage. And you can tell there's no audio because there's no little audio symbol down here at the bottom. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Let's go get an audio file. We can go back up to File and then Import, like that. Or we can do a little shortcut. This is the way I like to work. The shortcut to open up the Import dialog box is simply to double-click on some empty space here inside the project panel. So just double-click here. It opens up the Import File dialog box. Simple as that. So that's the way I always go there. I don't go the File Import method. Try to use the shortcut when I can. So now I want to go get some audio. I've got an audio file here in Other Assets. Just have a little music file here. Just double-click on it to bring it in. Now the music's there. And you see that it has a little note with some, maybe a staff down there. If I select it, you see that it has this waveform up here indicating that's an audio file. No images associated with it. If I want to preview it in the footage panel, I just double-click on it. But if I press the space bar, which is the normal way you play something, nothing's going to happen. Audio behaves a little differently than video. So I need to press the 0 key to do what's called a RAM preview. So I'll do that right now. Like that. So that's how we can listen to some audio there. Now I want to go get a video file that has audio associated with it. This is just a sample video file that comes with Windows. So if you have it, great, but don't worry about it if you don't have it. Just going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to double-click inside here again. Go to Libraries, go to Videos, Sample Videos. This little video that has audio associated with it. Double-click on that. You can see the little audio down there in the bottom indicating that this guy has video and audio on it. If I click on it, the first frame is black, so it doesn't show up there. It just looks like a black frame. But if I were to open it up in the footage panel and then click spacebar, then you can see it. No audio because the spacebar doesn't play audio. If I press the 0 key, it'll RAM preview, it's called. And now when I click the spacebar, it does play with the audio. That's what it looks like when you bring in a video file that has audio associated with it. Okay, let's go get some images. I'm going to double-click here again. I'm going to back up to the desktop and go to the Working Files and go to PhotoSpin Assets. PhotoSpin is another company that provided assets for our use. They provided still images and Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator files. Open that up. You can see the icons there indicating what kind of files we've got. The JPEG files will come in just as straight image files. They're very easy to import. So I'll select a couple of those by clicking on one and control clicking on another and control clicking on that one and clicking open. There we go. This brings those guys in, just as straight image files. If I double click on them, you'll be able to see them show up here inside the footage panel. There you go. Okay, now I want to bring in a graphic file that has transparency. So let's double click here again. Go over to the other assets. There's some TIFF files here. These guys all have transparent backgrounds. I'll bring in the tennis ball TIFF, and when I double click on it, you'll notice it has a certain little dialog box that pops up. When you bring in something that has an alpha channel, meaning it has some transparency somewhere, it asks you, is this a straight alpha channel or a pre-multiplied alpha channel? Now this can be kind of a confusing concept. If you don't know the difference between pre-multiplied and straight, that's no big deal. All you need to do is just have After Effects guess which one it is. So I'm going to click on guess here, and it's going to say pre-multiplied. Now let's say you click the wrong one, or you decide you want to click straight instead of pre-multiplied. You might get a little halo around the image, and I'll show you how that works in a second. So we did the guess, and After Effects says it's pre-multiplied, so we'll click OK. And it says your undo a group mismatch it'll attempt to fix, which is fine. It's actually going to try to do things correctly. There you go. Now there's the tennis ball. I'll double click on it to show it here in the footage panel. And I'm going to zoom in on it a bit. I'm going to go Control or Command plus to zoom in on that screen a bit. Drag it over with the hand tool. Look right at the edge there. It looks really nicely defined. No little halo there at all. So it looks like After Effects guessed correctly. But let's have it guess incorrectly. I'm going to right click on this like that and say Interpret Footage, Main. When I do this, I have some options. One of them is to change the alpha from pre-multiplied to straight. So I'll do that one instead. And I'll say OK by pressing the Enter key. All right. Having that same message again, so we're doing something that might change things. I'll click OK. Take my hand tool and drag over here and take a look at the edge again. And now look at there's a little halo there. It may not be obvious to folks watching this in a video, but that little halo is not a good thing. You don't want the halo like that. So if you do see a halo like that, you might want to right click on that clip, go to Interpret Footage, Main, and then say, let's guess, and it switches back to pre-multiplied. So that's probably the correct one. Let me just click OK to get out of here. There we go. Let's take a look again. And now you see it's a nice sharp edge. So that's what that's all about. Finally, I want to import a sequence of images. So I'm going to double click down here again. I've got this image sequence folder here. This is some shots taken by the photographer, the English photographer Edward Muybridge. He pioneered using this stop-action photography and demonstrated, first of all, that when horses run, all four legs leave the ground sometimes, which is kind of interesting. So I want to bring in this sequence and play it like a video, one frame after the other. So all you need to do here when you have a sequence of shots like this is click on the first one, that's all, and then tell After Effects this is a sequence. Now, it automatically decided it was when I checked on the first one, but doesn't necessarily figure that out. But if it does, it'll have a checkbox there. If not, you want to click on that checkbox. It says force alphabetical order. It's okay because they're in the right order anyways, so I don't need to worry about that. It says interpret as footage or footage, right? No choice here. So TIFF sequence, click open. That comes in with a different little icon, that little blue thing there indicating this is a sequence, and it shows you 11 images in the sequence. If I double click it to open it up in the footage panel, and then press the space bar after I zoom out a bit so you can get a nice view of the whole thing. This is what it looks like. Which, as you might notice, is way too fast, right? But that's the thing. It's just one frame at a time, going 30 frames per second. So basically, you're seeing 11 frames go by in about a third of a second. So when you bring in these sequences, you can change the rate at which they play back. And I'm going to explain how to do that in a separate lesson. So that's how you import all kinds of different assets: video files, video with audio, still images, graphics with transparencies, and image sequences. We're going to work with Photoshop and Illustrator files in the next lesson.